Hello friends, welcome to this video. This is Rohit. Friends, in today's video we are going to talk about how to use sessions in Servlet. So we are going to talk about session tracking or session management in Servlet. So first of all, we will try to understand what sessions are actually, why we have to use sessions, what is purpose behind using sessions. Then we will try to discuss which interface is available for implementing sessions in Servlet. Then different methods we will try to discuss that can be used for creating, that can be used for accessing, or that can be used for destroying our sessions. And at last I will try to demonstrate you a simple example where we will try to use sessions in Servlet. So let's start by understanding what session is exactly. So session simply means a particular interval of time. So for example, the time between you log into system till logout from system. So during login and logout, whatever time you will spend with the system, that will be treated as a session. So during login and logout, whatever request will be made towards system from your client, all that request will be treated under a single session. All that requests will be considered for a single session. Okay, so session is a basically time period, interval of time, okay, between login and logout. So session tracking is a technique, is a way where we try to maintain the state, where we try to maintain the data of whom? Data of user who is trying to access our system. So this data can be collected and this data can be used for different purposes. So this is called session management in Servlet, or you can refer it as session tracking. So session tracking or session management is a process where we store, where we maintain the data of users session. So here, as we know, HTTP protocol is used for client and server communication. So client initiate the request for certain resource, that request is accepted and processed by our server, and then the available resource will be returned in form of response to the client from where request was initiated. So here we have to understand that HTTP is a stateless protocol. It means that it does not maintain any information of any request. Every request in HTTP protocol is separate, is independent. HTTP protocol works in 3 simple steps: initiating the request, getting the response, terminate the connection. These are the 3 steps which are followed in HTTP protocol. That's why every request in HTTP protocol is independent. So server does not store any data of requester. So if first request is made from client 1 and second request is also made from client 1, so server cannot differentiate, or server do not know from which client the request is coming. So there must be certain way where server should be able to identify who is requesting, who is user. So in some application it is required to save the state information. Because of that information can be collected from several interactions between the browser or between the client and a server. So in order to collect the information regarding user, we have to use sessions, and HTTP protocol is stateless protocol. That's why it doesn't store any information of any request. So question comes, how to store state or information of user? So solution for this is session, concept of session. So sessions basically help us to store the information or to store the state of user. So every time whenever user try to request to the server, server treats that request as a new request according to HTTP protocol. So we need to maintain the state of user for recognizing, for identifying particular user, and with help of session we are going to do that. Okay, so why to use session tracking? So session tracking is used for recognizing particular user by storing his preferences. So what you can store? So you can store his language, his location, his username, or you can store any other data that can be used by system in order to identify, in order to track the user, who is using system, who is requesting particular resource. So that's why we are using sessions. So for providing personalized experience to the user, sessions are useful. So system will try to identify you based on the values, based on the data that is collected through number of requests that comes under single session between login and logout. Okay, so the main purpose of session is to provide personalized experience of system to the user. So system will try to recommend you certain items, system will try to show you the products or items in which you will be interested. And how system is knowing this? So system is storing your browsing data through sessions. So there are different session tracking techniques available. So these are the 4 session tracking techniques. First one is cookies, second one is hidden form field, third one is URL rewriting, and fourth one is HTTP session. Now friends, in the last video we discussed about cookies, what cookies are, how to create cookies, what is purpose of cookies, all that things we have discussed within the last video. So if you want to know more about cookies, how to use cookies within Servlet, you can easily find out that video on our channel. So what cookies are basically? So cookies are very small files that are stored on client. So these files are sent by server. Okay, so whenever client try to request certain resource to the server, these files are added within the request, so due to which server is able to identify who is requesting a resource. So cookies are one of ways through which we will be able to identify our users. So cookies can be treated as a client-side solution for session tracking. Okay, second way we have hidden form field. So you might know that in HTML form we can create hidden field. So that hidden field can be used for storing the certain kind of data related to user, and later on that field data can be stored within database as well for later access. So hidden form field is also one way for session tracking. Then third way we have URL rewriting. Now in URL rewriting we try to add certain token to the URL, and that token basically used for identifying the current user. Okay, so that token will be available for all successive requests. So server will be able to identify particular user with token number. So token number you can assume as a certain random value. Okay, so that random value may consist characters, digits. Okay, so that is nothing but a token. So token can be used for identifying a user. And at last you have HTTP session. So here in Servlet, this HTTP session interface can be used for creating, for managing sessions. Okay, so next of the few minutes we are going to understand this HTTP session. Okay, how to use HTTP session interface for creating session, for accessing session variables, for destroying sessions, what methods we have. Okay, all that things we are going to understand here regarding HTTP session, and one practical example we will try to see where we will try to use all these things. Okay, so these are the 4 ways for implementing the session tracking in Servlet. Okay, now we will try to understand this HTTP session interface. So in the Servlet, whenever certain user try to request certain resource on a server, then container basically creates the session ID for user. Okay, so here understand, container is creating session ID. Session ID means a unique sequence of characters that will be unique for every user. So suppose there are n number of users, so for every user we will have unique session ID, so with which particular user can be identified. Okay, so who is creating this session ID? Container is creating. Now what is container? So container provides a runtime environment for executing Java enterprise applications. So whatever environment will be required for executing such applications, it will be provided by container. So client can request only static web pages where request will be arrive at server, server will search for requested resource and it will return that resource to the client from where request was initiated. But if user want to retrieve web pages as per the user's input dynamically on the fly, then we require the containers. So at that point container comes in picture. So it reads the user input, according to that it selects particular web page which is to be written as a response to the user. So there are 2 cases, 2 scenarios you try to understand here. By default client and server are communicating in a static way, like client will send request, server will just search that requested web page and it will return it. This kind of communication will be static. Okay, server is not doing any processing here at all. But whenever we want to retrieve web pages based on user's input, then server has to process, and at point the container comes in a picture. So container basically help server to retrieve the specific web page according to user's input. Dynamically it will fetch, it will retrieve the page or resource and it will return to the client. Okay, so this Servlet container is a part of web server which can run in a separate process. So container uses the session ID for identifying particular user. So session ID will be used, as we talk, session ID will be used for identifying, for tracking every user. So container is also using session ID for identifying user. Okay, so the object of HTTP session can be used for 2 tasks. First task is binding the object with the specific user. So whenever a request is coming from specific user for specific resource to the server, then to bind object with that specific user, the object of HTTP session is used. And second use of HTTP session object is what? For viewing and for manipulating the information about the session. So what you can view, what you can manipulate, what you can access, so such as session ID, when session was created, when last time it was accessed. Okay, such kind of details can be retrieved, it can be viewed, and as well as it can be manipulated with help of HttpSession object. So here the object of HttpSession is used for two purposes: for binding the object with specific user and for displaying, for manipulating information about specific session. So here you try to understand, friends, if there are n number of users, then for every user there will be different HttpSession object. So for first user there will be different session object, for second user there will be different HttpSession object. So each object will be responsible for maintaining the session information like identifier of session, creation time, last access time. All this information will be managed and it will be available within the specific session object. Okay, now let's try to understand how to get the HttpSession object, how to create the HttpSession object. Now there are two methods available within the HTTP Servlet request interface. So first method is called getSession. This is the default method, and second one is called getSession with one parameter, boolean parameter. So what happens in first method? See, in the first method it will just return the session which is associated with the current request. If the request does not have session, then it will create new session. So getSession is used for creating new session. If session does not exist, it will create new session. If session is already existed, it will return the current session. Okay, now second method we have with a parameter called boolean create. So as it is boolean, you can pass two values, true or false. So this second method returns the current HttpSession associated with the current request. If there is no current session and if the value here is true, then and then only it returns a new session. Otherwise, if there is a false value, then it will not return new session. Okay, so understand here, if the value is true, then and then only it will return a new session. Okay, if session is not exist, then it will return new session. Okay, so here we can pass two values, true or false. Okay, these are the two methods that can be used for getting the object. Okay, now which different methods we have in HttpSession interface? Let's try to see. Okay, first method we have getId. Its return type is string. So this method will help us to retrieve a string that will contain the unique identifier value of current session. So as we know, for every user there will be certain unique ID, that is session ID. So you can retrieve the session ID with help of getId method. Second method we have getCreationTime. So this method will return the time when the session was created. Okay, it basically returns the time in number of milliseconds. Then third method we have getLastAccessTime. So from its name you can imagine what will be this method. So this method will return the last access time when client has sent request associated with the session. Okay, and at last fourth method we have invalidate. Now invalidate method is used for destroying the session, or in other word I will say for unbinding the session object. Okay, so we know that for every user there is a particular session object binded to it. So in order to unbind it, we use invalidate method. Okay, so getSession is used for creating the session, whereas invalidate is used for destroying this session. Okay, now see certain examples how to create session. So first of all, for creating session, as we discussed, which method we have to use? GetSession method we have to use. Now see the example here, HttpSession, the name or the object is session, any name you can see use here. Okay, HttpSession, this is interface, this is object name, is equal to request.getSession. You can see here. So this method will return the session that is associated with current request. If session is not created, it will create a new session. If session is already there, it will return that session. Okay, and now you can use setattribute method for creating this session variable. So session, that is our object name, dot what method we have? Setattribute. Now here there are two things. This is name of our session variable, this is name of its value. So what session variable I am creating here? Name. What is its value? Rohit. Okay, I can create multiple variables as well. So for example, I will show you like this. Okay, another session variable I will create here, location. So let's say location is Mumbai. Okay, another session variable we will create, let's say language. Okay, so let's say English. Okay, so like this we can create different session variables. So for creating session variables, we have to use setattribute method. It requires two parameters, the name of session variable, the value which we want to set. You can set this value dynamically as well, means you can receive value from HTML form and that value you can pass over here. Okay, so this is how we will create the session variables here. Okay, now next thing, how we can access these session variables. So for accessing session variable value, we have to use getAttribute method. So see the example here, again same line I am using here, HttpSession request.getSession. Okay, so it will return the information regarding current session. If there is no session available, then it will create a new session. Okay, now next to that I am checking if the value of session is not equal to null, means session has certain value available. Now we will try to retrieve that value. So I am creating one string variable over here, string name, and whatever value we are retrieving here with help of getAttribute. Okay, getAttribute, and what was our variable name? See here, name. So here whatever value it will return, let's say Rohit. So this value will be typecasted, it will be converted to string, and where it will be available within the string variable name. And here I am printing that value. The value is name. Okay, in the same way, suppose I want to retrieve the value of location. Okay, so what I can do, see here, I can create one new variable over here, string location is equal to, we will typecast the value to string. So I will write session.getAttribute, and what is my session variable name? Location. Okay, this is how we will retrieve the value, this is how we will access the value. So friends, for setting the session variable value, setattribute method is there. For getting the session variable value, getAttribute method is there. Okay, this is how we can do that. Okay, now next, after creating sessions, after accessing session variables, suppose we want to destroy session. So how you can do that? So for destroying session, the method is invalidate. So this method is used for destroying this session. So again you have to get the session information here, and then I can call this method session.invalidate. Here your session will get destroyed. It will be no longer accessible, it will be no longer available. Okay, friends, this is how we can create, access and destroy sessions. Now we will try to go through one simple practical example where we will try to use all these ways for creating, accessing and destroying session. Okay, so for that friends, I will quickly create one new project over here. Friends, if you want to know more about how to create project, you can watch our previous video where we have explained all these things in very detail. Okay, so I will go with all these default settings and our project is getting created over here. Okay, now this default index.html file we have. Okay, on left side you can see here the web application file is created with all these directories, and now first of all we will try to create the form over here. Okay, so this form will contain the two text fields, one for username, one for password, and there will be one submit button. So whatever username, password will be submitted through HTML form, that we will check within the servlet. If it is correct, we will welcome him. If it is not correct, we will display error message, and we will also create one page which will use for destroying the session. Okay, so first of all here I will create one form. Okay, name of form, let's say login. Okay, then let's say method will be get, and action I will specify shortly. Okay, then here I will use /form. Now in between this I will create one h1 heading like login form /h1. Okay, now next to this I will create username, and here we will create one text box. Okay, its name will be username, and after this I will use br tag. Okay, so like this. Okay, I will copy this and on next line I will make some changes over here. This will be password, the type will be password. Okay, and here will be password. Okay, this is how we have created. Now next to this I will create one submit button. So input type is equal to submit. Okay, its name will be submit and its value will be login. Okay friends, this is how we have created this simple form. Now let's try to run this. Okay, what output we will get, we will try to see. By default it may get open within the Internet Explorer, so I will copy that link in the Chrome. Okay, so this is how we are getting the output. Okay, login form, username, there is a password and login. Now whenever we will click on login, we will redirect him to the login servlet. Okay, where we will try to check the username, password. If it is according to our requirement, we will create session. Otherwise we will redirect him on login form again and we will display the error message. Okay, so first of all we will try to receive this value within the new servlet. Okay, so for that I will create new servlet here. let's say name of our servlet is login process. Okay, login process is name of my servlet. Okay, next we will add this to the web XML and we will click on finish. Now friends, we have to redirect our user on this newly created servlet. So what will be my path? I will just get this path first of all, and here in the action of our form, and within this web application, what is name of our servlet? Login process. So whenever we will submit this form, now we will redirect it to this login process servlet. Okay, now here first of all we will try to receive the username and password over here. So, okay, so by default they have given this code, we don't need this, I will remove this. Okay, here we will write let's say processing login. Okay, this is how. Now next to this, in order to retrieve the submitted username and password, okay, we have to create two string variables here. So I will create string un is equal to request dot, the name of method is get parameter, and here we have to pass our field name. What was our field name? Username. Okay, so this is how we will retrieve the username which has been submitted by user. Okay, next to that, what we want? Password we want. Okay, so both of these values we will receive here within the un, and I will say pw for password. Okay, these two string variables we have created. Now next to that, simply we will try to write the logic where we will compare our username and password. Okay, whatever we want. So we can write here logic. Okay, so here on next line we will write logic like if username equals, let's say, admin, and password equals, let's say, admin, if these both conditions are true, then we will write welcome message over here. Okay, so I will write like this: welcome to dashboard, and here we will attach the username. What was our username? Un. Okay, so in un variable we have received it. Okay, and here with displaying this, we will try to create the session now. So how to create session? So for that we will use HTTP session interface. So HTTP session, name of our session is session, is equal to request dot get session. Okay, so with this session will be created. Okay, there should be capital S. So here I will import this JavaX Servlet HTTP session. Okay, and next to that I have to create session variable. Okay, so here I will create session variable. So how I will create session variable? So I will write here session dot set attribute. Okay, and what attribute I want? I want, let's say, user underscore name. This is name of my session variable, and what is its value? Username, whatever we have received. Okay, this is how we will create the session variable. Okay, so this code will execute if username and password is admin, but if username and password is not admin, then in else part what we will do, So we will first of all display one message over here, print. Okay, so what will be my message? It will be invalid username or password. Okay, this will be message I will display, and after this we will try to redirect him on the our index.html for login again. So for that, here we will use request dot get request dispatcher, and where we want to redirect him, we want to redirect him on index.html dot include a request and a response. So friends, here we have to understand what is role of request dispatcher over here. So friends, here the request dispatcher interface is used for dispatching the request to the another resource. So this resource may be HTML, this resource may be Servlet, or it may be JSP page. So right now where we are dispatching the request, where we are sending the request, we are sending request to the index.html. Okay, this is how we will write the logic for checking our username and password. So let's try to save this, and now first of all we will try to check whether it is working or not. So I will visit the browser. Here we will refresh it. First of all I will provide username admin and password admin. Okay, and I will click on login. Now here you can see processing login, welcome to dashboard, and what is our username? Admin. Okay, we are redirecting correctly. Now I will specify certain another name, let's say Rohit, and let's try to click on login. Now you can see here processing login, invalid username or password. We are not getting redirected to our dashboard. Here you can see this message, invalid username or password. Okay, I think there is no need to write this processing login. Okay, so we can comment this actually. Okay, only there will be output invalid username or password. If I put again correct username password, we will get redirected to dashboard. You can see welcome to dashboard. Okay, this is how the session variable will be created. Now we will create one more page over here, and within that page we will try to access the session variable. Okay, because we know that session variables are accessible along all web pages, okay, within the application. So here we will create one more web page. So let's say that web page is dashboard, or okay, so here we will create new servlet actually, and okay, settings. Okay, let's say our servlet name is user settings. Okay, and we will create on next. We will add this to the web XML. Okay, now within this settings page we will try to access the username. Okay, so here I will say user settings, and we will add h1 tag over here. Okay, so h1. Okay, remaining things I don't need. I will remove this all remaining code. Okay, and now here we will try to access the username, okay, with which user has login. So for accessing our username, we learn which method we have. We have getAttribute method. So with getAttribute method we can retrieve the value of certain session variable. So first of all we will try to create here HttpSession. I will create here session is equal to request dot get session. Okay, and here we have not imported package, that's why we will import it. Okay, now next to that, here first of all we will check if session is null or not. If it is null, we will not access anything, but if it is not null, means session is registered, session is created, we will try to get the attribute value. So here I will write session is not equal to null, then here we will try to access the value. So here I will create one string variable, let's say string username is equal to, we will write here session dot, and which attribute we want to retrieve. So let me check what name I have given. So you can see our session variable name is user underscore name, so same name I will pass over here. Okay, and whatever value we will get, it should be typecasted to string. So here I will write string. Okay, now the value is available within username. Okay, so here let's say I will give this variable name username underscore 1. Okay, so we will display message over here. Okay, so again I will use this statement, I will copy this and I will say here, okay, in let's say h4 heading I will say welcome to settings, and we will display our username over here. Okay, so for that it will be like this. And what is our variable name? So our variable name is username underscore 1. Okay, this message we will try to display. Okay, now let's try to check, and we will give link to this user settings over here within the login process. So here we are displaying this. So next to that I will use here println, and here I will display settings. Okay, so ahref is equal to settings slash a, and I will paste the link over here. Okay, so I will copy this whole link again up to this. Okay, and we will paste it here, and where we have to redirect user settings. Okay, this is the URL. Okay, let's try to check. Now again I will try to refresh this. You can see we are getting this setting links. Now if I click on settings, you can see we are redirected to user settings web page, and here we are getting username admin again. Okay, so there is, I think, spelling mistake I have. Settings, there should be G, settings, and there should be certain space. Now if I refresh it again, you can see we are redirected to user settings, and here you can see we are accessing here the our session variable. Okay, so we are getting admin username over here. This is how we can access the session variable across multiple web pages. Okay, now last thing we will try to see, we have to destroy the session. So for destroying session, what I will do, I will create a link over here. Okay, next to this session I will create one link logout. Okay, now here I will create one new servlet logout. Okay, user underscore logout. So I will write here logout. Okay, and the string of our link will be logout, like this. So whenever user will click on our logout link, where he will get redirected? User logout servlet. So let's try to refresh. You can see we got this link over here. Okay, but we have not created this user logout servlet till now. So what I will do, I will create new servlet here, and name of my servlet is user logout. So user underscore logout. Okay, click on next, add this to web XML and click on finish. Okay, this is my user logout servlet. Now here we are going to destroy our session. Okay, so how I will destroy session here? So as we discussed, we have to use session invalidate method, okay, for destroying our session. So for that, here I will display message destroying sessions. Okay, and this remaining things I don't need, I will remove it. And now here first of all I will get the session. So again I will write HTTP session, and let's say session is name of our object is equal to request dot get session. Okay, so if you observe in every file, this line is common. So first of all we are checking whether session is exist or not. If it is existed, we will get the information. If it is not exist, we will create it. Okay, so here again we will import our session package. Now next to that, here simply I will use session dot invalidate. Okay, and after this I will display message. What message will be there? You are logged out successfully. You are logged out successfully. This will be my message. Okay, and here I will use br tag, so we will get it on new line actually. Okay, like this. Now let's try to see whether it is working or not. So I will refresh this, and now you can see on settings we are getting this username over here. Now I will click on logout. You can see here destroying session, and we are getting this message, you log out successfully. Now friends, if I try to access the settings web page over here, okay, so I will write here users settings. Now you can see here we are getting null value. Initially we were getting admin value because the session variable was available, but we have logout, that's why the session variable got destroyed, and that's why we are getting null value over here. Okay, in the same way, if you try to access the login process, okay, so I will remove this rest of the things. We are not getting anything here. Why? Because session has destroyed. Okay, so again if we go to login form, and again if I use admin as username password, you can see we are getting redirected. If I go to settings now, you can see here. Okay, this is how we can create session, we can access session variables across multiple web pages, and at last we can destroy sessions. So after destroying session, no session variable will be accessible at all. Okay, this is how, friends, we can create, access and manage sessions within the servlets. So friends, if you find this video useful, please like and share this video. Friends, if you have any doubt, please let me know in comment section. Thank you for watching. I will see you in next video.